Hey guys, my apologies for getting on later, but this should be a good one. I've been doing a lot of research on this topic with torrents, so I think most of you guys are going to be watching this after the stream, but I'll give you a little peek of kind of where I'm at. This is the landmark. It was the tallest building in Vietnam until they built the I forgot the name of it. There was the one in Saigon that I've had on my stream. It's kind of a cloudy day, but a little bit. Ooh, I can't get too close to the edge. I get scared. But just a little bit of Hanoi. So, but I'm going to be. I can talk about ARB and NovaChain and some of those other topics another time. I kind of wanted to focus on BitTorrent because this is one that I've had a lot of experience with in the 2000s. This was a big area of interest of mine, and I thought it was interesting because I was just diving back into this. One of the primary sources of information that I used to get was at a place called BitTorrentTalk.org, which is no longer in existence. However, it looks to me as though they've moved this to this SB Innovation, a German site. So one of the things with these types of forums is the ability to get invites. So there's some different, see, offer invites to, so you can see here, offer invites to other trackers. So to kind of give a broad definition of BitTorrents, it's a way to share massive files that we saw just a tremendous amount of internet activity earlier in the 2000s. Some of the pioneers in crypto with kind of the mega upload phenomenon and how that played out, and some of the legality behind actually running some of these trackers. There have been ones that have been up and down. So I put a lot of logos that some of you guys that have been in this space may know. Demonoid was a huge one, and there's also I guess there needs to be the distinction between public and private trackers. Oink was probably one of the greatest phenomenons in music history in terms of having the ability to access all of the music files that you would ever want. Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails at one point said it was the greatest music album, ever amassed in human history. So there was a lot of adoption behind that before it got shut down because of, again, like some of the legalities behind that. We haven't seen anything even close. I mean, Oink was like Napster, like optimized. There was just a tremendous amount of activity and volume of people sharing files. Now what we've seen is recently we've seen like the integration with Tron, so I'll go into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to kind of touch a little bit more on some of these trackers. Currently there's, if you go to BitTorrentTalk.org, which I thought was kind of interesting. I didn't know that this was started by Satoshi, but there is a BitTorrent aspect where you can look at invites to some of the private torrent trackers. So the private are going to be a lot more. You're not going to have as many issues. For those of you that may have downloaded like movie files or music files in the past, if you weren't protected, like if you were doing it from a public ISP, or they could reverse look it up, you may have gotten a letter like from your internet service provider basically saying, hey, you downloaded this file, and there was people that were getting prosecuted, facing steep fines, jail time in some instances with this. So there was a lot of people that, to completely avoid a lot of that mess, there was the private trackers. But in order to get into the private trackers, you needed an invite. And there are some really good ones. So this bitme.org is a great one that I lost access to. Some of these ones, if you're going down the list, Torrent Leech, you can see here, torrentleech.org. was another one. Now, as far as like paying for invites, this is kind of frowned upon in the community. However, I think we're seeing some of that change. A lot of these trackers I don't really recognize. Some porn trackers, music trackers. what.cd was again another one that I had a link on my thumbnail. That's kind of taken over with the space that Oink left. So a lot of those files that were on trackers were seeded on that site. There was a little bit more restrictions behind that. You had to go through like an interview, and you had to show competency of what you were doing. So that kept a lot of people out, but it kept the community a little bit more protected from outsiders coming in, or perhaps some sort of regulatory body coming in and wanting to shut that down. Now the incentives behind this is seeding. So the idea behind BitTorrent is you want a 1-to-1 ratio. So you want to be able to, if you download a 4 gigabyte file that's like a movie file or something, in order to keep your standing in the community, you needed to upload the same 4 gigabyte and to have your 1-to-1 ratio. And that's kind of the way that this was established. Now, what Tron is trying to do with a BitTorrent client, which is a little bit different. So I'm used to using uTorrent. I can just kind of show you. I haven't really using it, quite a bit, but this is a very light version. Like I was using it to download Mixmeister, which I was kind of using, and you can see like some of the files they get. They get corrupted or whatever, but the amount of seeds is going to give you a much faster download, the amount of people that are seeding on that particular file. Now, those ones are on public trackers, and sometimes there's issues with that. You're opening yourself up to malicious attacks or viruses. There's a lot of spam advertising and things you have to click out of. Like that was one thing with like Demonoid. It seemed like when you got in there and you clicked on a few things, like ads would pop up and you have to like close them all out, but it did work. So a lot of it was just, it seemed almost like a deterrent, but it did work. Tron, the way that they're stepping in, there was this really interesting interview, which I posted in the description below, where this is the founder of the BitTorrent protocol and Tron, Justin Sun with Tron, and so they're integrating this, and it's a really fascinating interview. I encourage you guys to kind of watch it, but this came out not too long ago. I've been following this a little bit. Like some of this news is still from like the summer of last year, but I think the way that this is going to be integrated is something that is really interesting to watch, because I think that a lot of people don't fully understand the amount of volume of activity in the BitTorrent network and kind of in some of these private trackers. I feel like it's slowed down a lot, but I really don't know, and there's not a whole lot of good metrics behind that. At one point, at one point, I think it was theorized, kind of at the peak, kind of like when Mega Upload was like going down or coming under investigation, and a lot of these other files that were trading pretty heavily in the late 2000s, that it was like half of like the overall internet traffic, because you have to understand like the size of these files and the speeds. An interesting factoid, like I got really into torrents, where I was like downloading, and when I would travel with football teams, I'd be in some pretty good hotels that like much like kind of this place, like a 5-star hotel, where the internet speeds are pretty fast. So like I think that my stream here should be pretty rock solid. I got on one in Washington DC, and I mean, the speeds of downloads of some of the files that I was taking in, I thought were crazy, because they would have like these packs that are like just enormous, and you have a lot of ability to kind of select different files and things like that. I remember I was downloading a ton. I still have a lot of files backed up from that. I have like pretty much every movie that I've ever watched, on a hard drive now. Like I used to have DVDs, but like I I downloaded like all of my movies and basically just sold all my DVDs. And I was back like in the, you know, kind of in that time frame. But what was interesting about some of these communities, these private trackers, you can get like software, you could get cracked software. It's a little bit harder now, and you're seeing it's a little bit more difficult to kind of get some of the things you want, but you can still find it if you know what to look for. So I'm pretty savvy in that respect, and like if I need a particular piece of software, I could probably figure out how to get it, and that's kind of helpful. From a productivity standpoint, or even just like testing out different software. And there's a lot of resources in some of these, in these forums when it comes to BitTorrent. So I encourage you guys to kind of check some of that out. This was a GitHub one, and it has a much more thorough tracker list. And there's some websites here that are kind of showing some of the, like I was kind of going through these. These are the actual sites for the trackers that you can kind of check into. So there's a lot of them out there, and BitTorrent itself is much more of like a protocol. The BitTorrent brand, the company that is taken over in this. So I put a few of these. So this was the BitTorrent brand, and this is I don't know if there's a whole lot of metrics on these that I trust, but it's probably, you know, up there in like, you know, the top, you know, maybe the top 3 of the clients, BitTorrent clients. I would say uTorrent would probably be number 1. I don't really know that for sure. Vids was another one that I used to use. You know, a lot of them are very similar. You're going to want to understand a little bit more about security if you really want to kind of dial those things in. But I thought that was an interesting article, and this was one that just came out not too long ago, talking about how Tron might not be able to handle some of the volume of transactions that we're seeing. And so it's kind of an interesting perspective, because that's I think that like we're seeing, you know, like I'm pretty certain Ethereum would not be feasible to run like a type of protocol of the magnitude of BitTorrent on something like the Ethereum blockchain. And some of these next generation blockchains like Tron, EOS, Arc was another one. There's Cardano. So I think we're going to see more of these, some of these kind of the future, like the future capabilities, or some of the innovations, the innovations in the space. Like I really kind of see a lot of opportunity for mass adoption in this space. Like especially if it's done in a decentralized way, because that's kind of the big thing with the BitTorrent network, is that it's very decentralized. It's you know, you're only seeding on a few different things. It's the problem is incentivizing people to seed. Now, people that are getting into public trackers and don't know any better, they would just download and be seeding, you know, as the file completes. And but most people that know a little bit more, or a little bit more understanding of this, would kind of not seed those, because it's like going to take away from your bandwidth, right? Well, the idea behind Tron, and some of the things why I think that it's really interesting to kind of take a look at what they're doing, is there's a lot of opportunity for incentivizing users to seed on the network. And if you have enough adoption in that, I think that could really take off. Let me check in with the chat a little bit. Watch how many customers BitTorrent has when they start charging for downloads. 0. People will just go to free torrent download sites. Yeah, I think that part of it is incentivizing people to, I mean, you can even make that incentive very, very, very minute. And if for ease of use, I think that that's where you might see some of that increase. Like, I think a it's becoming like harder and harder to find some of those free sites. Not that they don't exist, but they keep getting taken down from time to time. And so some people would rather pay, microtransaction for just the, the not having to deal with the headache. How do they prove people are seeding correctly? That's good. I mean, I guess your interpretation of correctly is also another one, because like I remember with some of these websites, like with what.cd, like you had to set up your client in a certain way that would make it more secure. Like there was kind of it was a requirement to get into that community, as you had to understand how to kind of protect yourself, like be behind, even something as simple as like a VPN. But it's been a while since I've gotten out of that. But there's so many different like settings in kind of the security of some of these torrent trackers or torrent clients. So there was a few people talking about it, so I put 2 videos here. This is the Crypto Lark. He's kind of talking a little bit about BitTorrent seducing Ethereum devs to leave, or Tron seducing Ethereum devs to leave. From that, I thought that was kind of interesting. I watched a little bit of that. Ivan on Tech is another. This is a really interesting video. He kind of goes over some of the stuff I just kind of explained, some of the overall concepts. So, like, I'm trying to kind of keep the conversation a little bit more generic, and so that a little bit more people have a more understanding. If you're like a developer type, like these conversations can get really technical. And once you kind of get outside of a certain area, you might not have a whole lot of experience. So that's why like the community, I think, is really big, and there's a lot of people that are very wanting to kind of help people in this community. This was a guy, this Chris Ferrillo. I thought it was kind of interesting. I used to watch this guy a lot back in the day. He was kind of a good torrent guy. He's kind of in his little his office that he built. He's a really smart dude. He can be a guy that can be a little bit difficult to listen to sometimes. When I was searching for BitTorrent, this was the #1 video in terms of view counts on YouTube. So I thought it was kind of worth kind of noting. It's kind of going through and explaining BitTorrent from a just kind of giving you a little bit more of an overall explanation of BitTorrent. So I know it's kind of it's a different subject, but I think it's interesting how it integrates with crypto, and we're going to see more and more of that, and we may be a huge source of innovation and adoption here in the future. Forgot about that dude. Yeah, I used to watch that guy. Like, you have to skip through his stuff, but he's smart. He knows his stuff. Tron's next generation blockchain. All you do is copy and paste code from other projects. I wouldn't know enough about that. I'm looking to get more versed in that respect, but I think I need to be around more developer types for that. What up, Face? I'm curious to hear people's experience, like in the BitTorrent space. Like, I was huge into this for a long time. This was an article I thought was kind of interesting. I'll also put this in the description below. Tron bought BitTorrent and crypto won't stop talking about it. This is back from a while back, but this was kind of big news, and I remember this coming out, but didn't hear too much about it until recently. And now I think what the conversation is this concept scalable on the Tron blockchain. Some experts have said no. Perhaps if they set it up a certain way. These are clients, so there's a lot of different clients to get into. This was the BitTorrent one that is currently doing the partnership with Tron. You know, uTorrent has been kind of like more of the light version. This Q BitTorrent was a popular one. LimeWire. It's kind of like the Kazaa days, the Napster days. There were so many of those types of trackers and clients that got shut down. And this was, in a lot of ways, all of that stuff was kind of before crypto. And, you know, if you get, I could see a lot of momentum behind this, especially if there's more adoption kind of in the dApp space with Tron. Let's take a look at that real quick. Because I know that I've been seeing a lot more people kind of getting involved in the Tron dApps, and they seem to have some of the best user adoption. Maybe with the exception of EOS. EOS seems to be having, you know, this PRA candy box over 10K daily active users. So not some of the same adoption, but still like much higher than what we've been seeing with Ethereum lately. There's not a single one over 1,000 with Ethereum. So it's like, it's kind of like the adoption is really fallen off with Ethereum, and it's kind of moving into some of these other blockchains. Tron seems to be the one that I see a lot of momentum in, at least right now. That may change. I'm surprised I haven't heard more from Cardano with all of the people that are so bullish on that project. I just, you know, I haven't, and Lisk was another one. I'll have to look a little bit more into some of those. Blockchain is open source, nothing wrong with Tron copying and pasting. Yeah. There's been some talks about that, like, I mean, with the smart contract space, that was kind of the big thing. It's like as soon as an innovation came out, it got cloned and got copied. And I think that's, however you feel, perhaps on like artist like rights, I think that was kind of one thing. You know, if you are kind of getting into like music, say music, and you download the music and you're using it for something, maybe even in like some sort of video or whatever. Like I know it's like some of the stuff that I've been putting out, like I'll get like copyright strikes if I'm using copyrighted music, but like that's kind of a whole space that's that I feel like people have different kind of political viewpoints. I guess it can get somewhat political because like some people are going to consider it stealing, some people are going to consider it like sharing, going to consider it, you know, free market, going to, you know, consider it like kind of an intrusion of freedom for people to be able to share files between each other peer-to-peer. Kind of uses some of the same, you know, talking points of like the banks. Like the banks want to keep people out of, you know, dealing in financial manners peer-to-peer. So with like the torrents, you know, it's kind of the same thing. It's like a decentralized network. That was about all I had. Like, I'm very interested in this space. I'm very interested in torrents, and I always kind of have been. I've gotten away from it for a while, but the amount of information you can get access to, you know, like, I think one of the biggest things that I got use out of was like the software. You know, I mean, I feel like some of these, a lot of software solutions should be free. You know, if you're, some of the best ones are free. But there's, I guess there's different ways of kind of looking at that. This place is really nice. Yeah, it's beautiful here. Like we're up on the 62nd floor, so I guess they've got like an observation. I seem to be having some issues on my streams. I apologize for that. But now it's working. Oh man, I'm scared of heights. I went to this bar the other day that was up. I think I told some of you guys about it. It was, oh jeez, these guys. I was up on the 70th floor or something. The whole roof was like completely open. It was like a clump on the top of this roof, and it just had this like it was literally like right here. It was like a piece of glass. I about had a heart attack up there. And this is Asia. It's just a little bit different when it comes out. Yeah, that's about all I had with talking about torrents, but an interesting topic. I want to kind of maybe do a little bit more of an update on this, and I'm curious to hear if any of you guys have some thoughts on that. So, all right, guys, appreciate y'all staying online. I'll catch you guys on the next one.